Now in this video I'm going to show you how to use perhaps the best module of Snapseed, which is Tune Image, to edit this wonderful sunset photo. And to do that, we'll of course open Tune Image. But actually before I do that, I noticed that the horizon isn't perfectly straight, so I can go back and just go to Straighten and see if I can fix the horizon real quick. And it's not a big difference, of course, but you know, if we can, why not make the horizon perfect? So this looks about right to me, so I'll just go ahead and save changes. Okay, good. So now we can open the Tune Image module again. And here you can see all the adjustments in Tune Image. You get brightness, ambience, contrast, saturation, and white balance. Now the first thing I often like to use is ambience. And what ambience does essentially is increases midtones. Now if you go all the way up as I did, it just doesn't look natural, so you don't want to do that. But if you increase ambience a bit by something like 30 or 40 in most images, that's usually a good start. And what it does is it really makes this detail in the sky more exciting. Like if you look at the image before, you see that the sky isn't as exciting or interesting as it is now that we've applied ambience. And in fact, I'll go ahead and add it even more, something like 35, just to be sure. Okay, so after ambience, I often like to increase contrast. And once again, contrast is awesome for most photos, but if you go too far, you lose detail and you also lose color, so you don't want that. But what you can do here is increase contrast just a bit by something like 10 or 15. And I think it looks better that way. So I'll just stick with 10 now, and I might come back to contrast later on. So next, let's look at saturation. And saturation is essentially how bright the colors are in the image. So if you go all the way up, you get some crazy results, which we are not going to keep, of course. Or if you go all the way down, you get closer and closer to black and white. But as always, the best option is somewhere in between, and I think something like 25 or 30 would work well with this image. You know what, I'm going to stay with 30 for now. And even though the image is a bit bluish now, and in general I don't want blue sunset images, I know that I can correct this next when I move over to white balance. And white balance is really one of my favorite tools in Snapseed. What white balance does is it allows you to go through a bunch of different shades as you slide from left to right. But more often than not, I tend to just increase white balance a bit. And from 0 to about 50, Snapseed just gives you really golden, beautiful looks for your photos. So 50 is a bit too much here because it's just all gold, and I do want to keep some blue in the photo. But what I can also do here is just increase white balance to something like 20 or 25 perhaps. I think I even like 20 better because it still keeps a fair amount of blues in this photo, but at the same time now it has this beautiful golden look, and it really looks like a beautiful sunset. Okay, and one more thing that I can do here is adjust the brightness. And quite often for sunset photos or photos with dramatic sky, I actually like to go down on brightness. So let me try out how that looks here. And what you can see is that paradoxically, the lower I go on brightness, the more dramatic and interesting the sky looks. But of course, I don't want to go too low because then we are losing some detail and then the whole image is just too dark. But here, and if you go up, it just gets less and less interesting. So here what you can do is, I think, just decrease brightness just a tiny bit, something like -5. And that is quite good in my opinion. Now let me go through all the adjustments again and let's see if there's anything we should change. Because you know, once you do these in conjunction with each other, sometimes you can just find better and better combinations as you keep looking. Then I think ambience could be higher. Something like 45 seems even better to me. Let's see, contrast. I said I might come back to that. And here I am. I think something like 15 is good, because if you go higher than 20, you start losing color in the sky, and I certainly don't want that. Okay, saturation. Saturation was already kind of good, but I think it gets even better if you make it like 40, because now you really see the blues in the sky. Alright, white balance. 25 is perhaps too much. Or is it? No, I think I like 25. Okay, and if we go back to brightness one more time, I still think -5 is the best choice for brightness. Okay, so now if you just look at what we've done in less than a few minutes, you know, the difference is just amazing. It blows my mind every single time how much you can do in Tune Image in Snapseed. So I'll just go ahead and save changes using this arrow. And now, the photo itself is not saved, it's just that the changes have been applied. So I'll go ahead and save the photo to Photo Library. And now I have a copy of this in my camera roll. And now let me see if there's anything else I can do to this image. And just going through these modules, I think that something like center focus could work well here. So let me just try that. I don't know if it will actually look good, but what center focus does essentially is it lets you add vignetting, which can be quite good for a lot of photos. So the first thing about center focus is that it tends to add blur to photos. So if you just pinch in and out, you have this circle, which sort of tells you which part of the image is center and which parts are the outside. And if you tap the screen, you can move it around the circle using the blue dot in the middle, but I'll just keep it here for now. And for this image, I don't want any blur outside the center, so I'll just keep blur to zero. Blur to 0. Okay, and by the way, if you tap on the star, they already have some presets that you can choose from, but I just like to do everything myself, so I'll tap the star again and the presets disappear. Okay, so let me start by changing the inner brightness value, which is brightness inside the circle. By default, they start with +30, but I don't like it like that. I just want to keep it to 0 because, you know, I already adjusted brightness before, and now I'll just change outer brightness. Now let me make this circle a bit bigger, position it in the center more or less, and now let's look at outer brightness. And the more you decrease outer brightness, the more vignetting you get. But you know, you don't want to overdo this because then it no longer looks natural, and that's not the point. You only want to add as much vignetting as you need to draw more attention to the central parts of the image, but you don't want the image to look unnatural. So I think for outer brightness, something like 65 or 70 could be a good choice. And now let's just compare changes. And you know, you might not think it's a lot, but actually it is. It does make a big difference here. And I think I'm just going to leave it at 65 because I think that value works well and it's not overdone. So I'll just go ahead and save changes. And once again, to make sure that this image is actually saved to camera roll, I'll save it to Photo Library. So that concludes this video, and in the next video I'll show you how you can use another exciting module called Selective Adjust to adjust only some parts of the image, not the entire thing.